Welcome to episode 39 of the Total Hockey Training Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Scahan. And before I introduce my next guest, as always, hey, I love doing these shows. The quality of guests that I'm having on all the time, it just grows. We're getting a lot of interest. So if you like the show, share it, talk about it, rate it. That'd be fantastic. And also, we're in the in-season phase of the Total Hockey Training Plan available on Train Heroic. If you're a young player all around the world and you need a plan, sign up there. You can always directly message me if you have any questions, and I can be your coach along the way. My next guest is Tony Greco. Tony is Canada's leading fitness expert. He has also won a gold medal in 1995 at the IAKSA Kickboxing Championship. That's pretty cool. He has worked with numerous celebrities and elite athletes. He is frequently sought out by some of the biggest names in the NHL. He is also a motivational speaker, a radio host, and a life coach. Tony, welcome to the show, pal.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be on the show, Sean.
Oh,
Thanks for that great introduction, too.
oh, you got it, man. You got it. You deserve it. You deserve it. And
Thank you.
I've always been a fan. I think your social media profile is unbelievable. I love your energy and enthusiasm you bring to all your posts. And I've heard about you for a long period of time as you worked in the National Hockey League. But please tell the listeners about your background, where you grew up, your education, and ultimately now, how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, I'm originally from Italy. My parents migrated here in Canada in 1974 with about $500 in a suitcase. So we weren't the wealthiest people, that's for sure. And but the good thing is we were out of Italy because at the time it wasn't the greatest place to be. And my dad started working as a construction worker, which was the fastest kind of job that he can accept. And my mom worked on a flight kitchen. And then I actually went to school not knowing the language and still kind of not knowing the language, but it was and it was just growing up through obstacles, right? But what happened was I started to begin my journey taking martial arts because when I went to school, I mean, I didn't speak the language, and I kind of went in halfway through the year, and I remember being in the playground and just people speaking a language I don't know, and it was hard to meet and build friends. So at the time, I guess now they call it bullying, but at the time it was just dealing with obstacles, and I had to learn really quickly. So I wanted to take martial arts, but I didn't have the money to do it. I loved watching those Bruce Lee movies back in the day. And then martial arts was kind of the key thing for me because I wanted to, I took it to beat up people, but it actually did the opposite, right? It actually taught me how to calm down, and it was a great discipline. So I owe a lot of my credibility to the martial arts, and I took that, and then I went at a higher level. I started competing in the States with a federation called NIASCA. It's the National Association of Sport Karate. So started to compete. I didn't win till I really got like my brown belt. Like I remember my first fight as the white belt, which is the first belt. I got like knocked out in 30 seconds. I'm like, holy geez, like, because it was point fighting. So then kept going. And then when I was a brown belt, I was competing all throughout the States. I remember Atlanta, Georgia was a big tournament, Minnesota, Orlando. And there was like one of these tournaments every month, and you kind of have to get rated. So I was seeded fourth in North America. And then I started to compete more on a national level. And then in 1995, I won a gold medal for Canada. And that's where kind of things started to happen. Now, I always wanted to work with athletes because after I won my black belt, I had a martial arts studio. I had over 2,500 members. I was very big back then. But what happened was I started to kind of understand the business and the discipline. And that's where like I wasn't a big fan of how to do the business, because it's like certain people maybe would, I don't know if the proper word is maybe deserve the belt that they got, but because it was a business, it was tough to kind of distinguish whether you're giving a the belt to that individual, because I was always brought up with hard work and don't ask questions, keep the talking on the ice, keep the talking on the field, because I played a lot of football. Whereas now, I find that discipline is maybe not as intensified. So I started getting into training. And I remember I said, well, look, I got to go to university here and start taking a course. So I hired this guy, Ed McNeely, who is the director of Sports Performance Institute. Great guy. And I basically hired him for like almost 6 months. And he taught me the theory. He taught me the practical stuff. And I said, use me as a client, like take me from A to B.
Mhm.
So we worked on a lot of stuff. And then his partner, Lloyd, as well, was helping out. And then just furthered some more of my career with some more fitness courses. And then what happened was we grew our business to 16 locations. So we had like 16 locations that we had across the country.
Wow.
And then we had an equity firm from New York that bought our locations. So what I did is my buddy Claude Giroux, as you know, is a guy in the NHL that's done really well. He said to me, he said, look, you should hook up with these guys in the States. So I hooked up with Kyle Dietz at the University of Minnesota and Dr. Ben Peterson, who now is with the Atlanta Hawks. And I really started to love the stuff that they were teaching. They got this new book called Triphasic. You're probably familiar with it. So I started to collect a lot of the data, and then I started to incorporate a lot of the stuff in my own program. And then I said, yeah, I'm just going to focus on athletes and mainstream people and just share the progress with others. And I see and I try to share that passion now with everyone.
I love that. I love Cal. I've known Cal now for 20 something years as well.
Oh, wow. Yeah, great guy. I've been doing a lot of work with him.
He was on the show previously. We had a great chat. And yeah, he's the thing about Cal is he's like when I talk to him like Cal, you got to slow down. I have to,
Yeah.
mentally write that down or write it down somewhere. Yeah, he's a
Yeah.
brilliant guy and also a good friend, great guy.
Yeah.
Well,
Super guy.
I got to know Ben when he was working with the Flyers and
Okay.
he was around Minnesota quite a bit. So
Yeah.
that's interesting. So I'm going back to your entrepreneurial journey. I'm interested in
Yeah.
that. Like you had 225 members in your was it a karate? Was it like a dojo?
Yeah. So what happened was I had a martial arts studio. I mean, the
Right.
main thing, I didn't want to get too far ahead. So what we did is my business partner, who actually has a hockey background, we opened up the dojo together. We had a franchise, and then we went on our own. We called it Greco Martial Arts. So what happened was I said, look, we need to make a choice here. At the time, I mean, there was a lot of martial arts schools that were kind of hanging in there and not hanging in there. And fitness was getting very popular, like a lot of these circuit style boutique. It was all coming. I
Yeah.
remember at the time, a lot of the strength coaches, even in Ottawa, were like, this guy's crazy, because I used to put these circuits together. And then we were kind of one of the first people to actually do circuit training in Ottawa.
Huh.
And then all of a sudden, all these different boutiques came up, and then it just became a money pit for people, right? These Orange Theories and, F45 and so on, like
Right.
everything just evolved. But we opened up a location. We called it Lean and Fit. And what we did is we had 8 different stations. We do like an upper body, push, an upper body pull, then a lower body pull. So we kind of divided up where it was upper body, lower body, upper body, and some kind of active recovery in between. And we'd go through this circuit for 45 minutes. And it really caught on that, we had to make a choice whether we were going to continue the martial arts or the fitness. So I said, you know what? I think fitness is going to be for everyone. Because when I won my gold medal, like I said, yeah, it's great to win a gold medal. Like it's fantastic feeling. I'm not going to lie to you. But it was the experience leading up to it. And I said, like, everybody should have that. Like fitness should not be just for the elite. It should be for everyone. And like, it was just that high, like the runner's high of the experience and the obstacles and, the being knocked down and getting back up, being knocked down and, perseverance. I think a lot of that's why I loved that angle of the martial arts, is to not give up. And I transferred that into the fitness world and carried that attitude, even with people trying to bring it out of them. So we had 14 locations in Ottawa, 2 in Toronto. And then there was an equity firm out of New York City that bought our brand out. And so me and my business partner, we sold the brand. And then for 6 months, we kind of really didn't know what we were going to do. So I stayed on as the brand ambassador. And that's where I saw the business kind of start to not do as well, because I built this thing on a community base. And these entrepreneurs, when they bought it, they wanted to take it more on a global, where it was not so much community based. So I didn't like the direction, which is apparently very common when you sell a brand, where it was going, especially being the founder. So that's how like the connection was with Cal and Ben, because then I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And then Chloe's like, you got to meet these guys. They're great. And then Ben was actually stayed at my house here in Ottawa because he came to see Chloe when he was with the Flyers and Ron Hextall. And that's how kind of like the ball started rolling. And I was really, I started to understand more of their training, whereas I was doing a lot of periodization stuff and, the general kind of like the prep phase, and not really the tempo stuff like the Cal Dietz introduces. So it was more just, the basic, we call it, that everybody kind of introduces. So when I started to listen to this stuff, I got really intrigued with it. And then that's how I came up with TG Athletics. So I took the data, started doing my own program, but it was the sell of my company that actually drove me to enhance and broaden my horizons to look for something different, which I'm glad. I think things happen for a reason. I regret the fact that like the community in Ottawa, because we had over, I'd say 500-600 people on each location, and Ottawa's a million population. So I still to this day, when I'm walking around in this city, like, oh yeah, hey, I remember going to your Greco location, so it was just, what the community did for us was amazing. It's unfortunate that right now there's not one existing location around.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it shows that you were invested in your community and you cared about those people, and you didn't want them to become, a number under that new model, I guess. So I respect that. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I think, happens a lot with people, is that people always ask me, like in business, I say, look, if you have a passion for what you do, and you see that vision in your mind, like you fuel that vision. And when you fuel that vision, because you're so passionate, you attract people. And I see it all the time. I try to instill that in some of the athletes and even some of the entrepreneurs. I'm like, look, don't do something because you have to do it. Do it because you love it. Because if you love it, you're going to attract that. It's like an energy. You want to be around someone that's always positive. You don't want to be around someone that's always negative all the time. It's going to suck the life out of you, right?
Right.
So
100%.
yeah.
So talk about your philosophy with training hockey players. With what I'm interested in is, okay, you work with Claude now for years, correct? And
Yeah.
you have your young players, and we'll talk about a few of them in a little bit here. What do you see? What is your difference in programming for a guy like Claude, who's still going, great player, and versus a young guy who might have just got drafted in the OHL, for example, or the Q?
Yeah. So with a guy like Claude, because he's getting up there in age, speed is a big factor. So even this year and last year, I had him doing a lot more sprinting, a lot of 5K runs, just to build his endurance, because his strength is overall pretty good, and it's been really good every year. And I said, look, the game is much faster, as you know, it's quicker. People would turn on a dime, they would stop a lot, faster and accelerate a lot quicker. And you need to keep up, because your skill is your skill. So the fact that he did a lot more of that endurance, a lot more stretching, a lot more mobility, just to kind of keep that WD-40 in the joints and moving quickly. It's able to kind of keep them healthy and keep them being competitive. Now, we did a lot more long duration of actual, like I said, the 5K runs, a lot more sprinting, and just kept the strength up. as opposed to before. We used to do a lot more other different techniques leading up to that. Whereas the guy that just drafted, we're starting with that prep phase, and then we're building the strength, because a lot of these guys, it's great to be fast and explosive, but you got to build that strength to become more strong and more explosive. So we really hit hard on the strength part, where we like to stress them out a bit, because I always tell these athletes, I say, guys, you can't train for a single game of hockey. I mean, you might not touch the puck one game. You might never get hit one game. You might not even play one game. So you can't train for a specific game, but we do know that the game requires strength, requires balance, requires agility, speed, mobility, all those factors. So, we need to try to work on the weaknesses. And we do a lot of testing, a lot of like strength testing, a lot of hip mobility. We run like that 5, 10, 20 split, which I don't know if Cal talked about. I find that very effective, because we often get a lot of coaches saying, hey, his first step is really slow. And I'm like, well, coach, how did you see that? Well, I see it on the ice. And then I say, okay, I'll test him in a sprint. And then all of a sudden, like, I'll get one of my coaches laying out 20 yards, and we'll time the athlete from 0 to 5, and then we'll start him from 10 to 20, and we'll see that maybe he's more slower on the back end, not the front end. Yeah. So then we'll change a lot of his training according to that, and we'll test him again in a week or two. And we've seen great results because mentally they see it, and I think your mind adapts to numbers. So, I mean, you're not seeing a significant where you're going from 5 seconds to 1 second, but you can see the slight millisecond to a second, and that alone triggers that confidence in the athlete and even the coaching. So we'll do a lot of that. We'll do a lot of like their 1 rep max. Part of it's for ego, but part of it's to see the progress. So when they first come in and then when they leave, that strength phase just before they get into the other phase, because we peak a lot of these athletes before they go to camp on contrast, and then during the year we kind of do a lot of that, and depending obviously if there's any injuries and that, but most of these guys we kind of peak them on the contrast, and then we keep them with contrast training. And then what we do is we'll look at their schedule. So let's say one guy has a game Sunday. Well, then, Monday we could do a lot more force dominant exercise. So we'll apply a little bit more strength, as opposed to as we get closer to the games, it's pretty much, just speed and body weight stuff. Like, it's nothing too crazy, because I tell these athletes, say, guys, you're not there during the year to get stronger. You're there to perform your craft. This is what you work 2 to 3 months over the summer. I can't afford to get you injured if you're going to go, over what you're capable of lifting in the in-season, because it's, first of all, not the right thing to do. And second of all, if you get injured, you're out of commission. And that's not what you want to do. So, I find the education part with these young athletes, I'm talking 15, 16, some of these guys that are playing in the, the junior level, is really important. And I know that your son plays with Dean Letourneau. Dean was a prime example of that, right? Like, we picked him up at a great level. He's a big guy, he's a strong guy, strength went way up. But it's like, look, you're going to camp in 3 weeks, this is, you got to make sure it's all about how fast you can move this weight. And guess what? You're a big guy. You're moving the weight fairly fast. You don't need to do 500 pounds. I'm okay with 350, but you're moving it so much faster than you moving 500 pounds, 1 or 2 reps, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. I agree with that, because I always found myself, you look at a roster of, say, an NHL team, you have these guys that are strong enough.
Right.
They're strong enough to play in the NHL. And for Claude, for example, that's might have been, I don't know, he's 37 now.
Yeah.
That could have been about 15 years now. He might have been strong enough for that period of time, where the players on the younger side, like you said, they need to develop that strength.
Yeah.
And there comes a time, I don't know when it is, in mid to late 20s maybe, or sometimes even early 30s, where, okay, they're strong enough. Now we need to work on these other things to keep them in the league, honestly, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that is part of being a coach. You have to know what that is for each individual athlete. That is great stuff. So tell me, I've seen your videos. I absolutely love the gym. Tell us about the gym, and it's at your home, correct?
Yeah. So what I did is during COVID, I mean, I was able to at least work with athletes, so that was a little bit of a pretty good break for me. So I was very fortunate that I wasn't indoors. And then what happened was when we got shut down, the last thing was okay. Well, we got to go outside and train. So I had this big tent. I have a 2 acre property, and I had this big tent. And then, I remember starting fires like at 6 in the morning, and people are doing deadlifts while there's like a flame burning like 3, 4 feet in front of them. The rain's kind of trickling down, and it's like it was just like this is crazy. When I look at some of those videos,
Sounds
I'm like,
awesome. Yeah.
oh, but you know what? They're just memories now. So then I said, look, I'm going to open up my own personal gym, and I'm going to have my friends and athletes come in, and like I was fortunate enough to get the permits, and then now. That's my home gym, and I only work with like 4 people at a time, maybe 3. I don't work with teams. I don't get teams in there. It's very personalized. It's for serious candidates. I'm lucky. I have a few celebrity clients, a few high profile clients, and I have 4 coaches that are working with me as well. And then we also do a lot of work with a junior team, being the Gatineau Olympics. So we go to their facility and do a lot of their strength and conditioning coaches, coaching there. And then we also consult with a lot of junior establishment, because I'm trying to change those habits that have been created in some of these junior levels. Like, and I know because I was that guy too. And I'm sure, Sean, you probably experienced it too, where these kids are asked to train 2, 3 times a week, but like they just kind of throw spaghetti on the wall, and they just, again, write on the whiteboard, 10 lunges and so on. And kids just kind of go through a routine. But I mean, I think what I've been telling the association, I said, look, there's so much money that goes into development. And I'm not saying this as a business. I'm telling you as making that individual better. I know there's different cities that spend a lot more money on development, and they get these kids to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
And they should be, because, the on ice I don't do. That's other coaches do that. But the off ice is so important, and people are starting to figure that out now. Like I remember even when we took the job for Gatineau Olympics, like the slush puppy, which is the arena, is gorgeous. This is like state of the art place. The change room has the same wood as the LA Kings, because there's a bit of history there
Sure.
back in the day. But it's funny because if you look at the gym after seeing this whole facility, you're like, what the heck? And everybody says the same thing when you go there. So it's because it wasn't a priority. But like I was saying to everybody, like the gym is not just working out, it's hanging out, it's building relationship, it's
Yes.
when you're down 2 games to get the guys revved up. Like it's very important. So
Yes.
I've been just telling a lot of these presidents of these leagues, I'm saying, look, guys, you guys need to put more research and more money into development, because these kids, they're all trying to make it. They're going to go out and do whatever you tell them to do. If I go into one of those sessions and say, hey, we're going to start doing 20 backflips today. Well, these guys are all going to try and probably throw their shoulder out, because they're going to think that I know, that's the right thing to do. Right. But
Yes.
that's the thing. It's like, so right now it's I'm trying to, educate some of the presidents of these associations to say, look, doesn't matter where you train, but just be smart about it. And maybe, ask that coach, hey, coach, if you want me to be faster, do you not think maybe I could do this drill, less than 10 seconds, opposed to get me over this hurdle for 1 minute? Because, I don't feel as fast after 10 seconds. Like just little things that are just common sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I get it, because, these guys have to pay rent. They own a commercial business. They got to make ends meet. They got to get these guys in there as much as they can, rotate them around. So again, I've been there, and I'm only saying it because I've experienced it with my own business,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's why I would never teach what I used to teach before. Like, it's funny because I run into people around town. They're like, "Oh yeah, I used to do your class," but like, listen, man, I don't do any of that stuff anymore. Not that it's bad.
Right. Right.
Not that it's bad, but it's like, it's just because you start to focus on why you're actually doing the thing, right? Like where before you're just trying to make ends meet and make some money, right? And you're kind of stuck. But now I'm at a level where like I won't touch it, because you're at a different level, right?
Well, I think that's a key thing. It's the educational component. A lot of people in these hockey associations, they don't know, right? They might have, say, quote, dry land activities scheduled. It might be stick handling, or they might go in
Right.
the shooting room at the rink, and that's their dry land. Well, you're not developing. I think you're shooting, you're stick handling while you're on the ice with your coaches, but you're not developing the physical attributes that can help you have success down the line. And I
Right.
agree with you. I think it is the educational component. It is the restrictions upon what associations are willing to do and what they think they need to do.
Yes,
It's all,
and it's unfortunate because see, like it's funny, Sean, because I spoken to the parents, and I said, look, what you guys have to do is I'm sure there's like a few, three or four parents that maybe have the funds, or maybe we can have fundraisers, but at least it's going to a great cause on the team. Because a lot of some of these parents that obviously have hockey players in these leagues, they obviously are kind of have some financial security, because hockey is an expensive sport. You look at the
yes.
cost of skates and sticks these days, right? So I said, this is something we could do, is raise the money. At least we're creating awareness, so we're providing a good, proper future for our kids.
Yeah, I love that. So I know you're a big proponent of proper nutrition for your athletes. Talk about how big that is for you and your staff and your athletes on a daily basis.
Oh, well, yeah, that's really important. We when the players come in here at the beginning of the summer, we do a whole orientation on the fuel. I say, guys, look, I mean, getting to the gym is one thing, but fueling the body is another. And most of these players, I know this year, for instance, Brand Clark was a defenseman for the LA Kings. So we worked very closely with the nutritionist for the Ray and Haley, and it's like it was very similar to the nutritional plan we gave him, because he had to have almost like 6,500 calories. They wanted him to be a little bit bigger. He came in at 205. He's like 6'4", and he actually gained 5 pounds of muscle and lost 9 pounds of fat. So I mean, the nutrition part is so key. And I tell these players, I say, guys, look, you guys are Ferraris. You're driving Ferraris. You're driving high performance cars. You burn a lot of fuel. You know what? You need a substantial amount of protein. You need your carbohydrates, and you need your fats. You hydrate with water. You can have some of the caffeine beverages like a coffee, and you stay away from the sugar drinks and all this pre-workout crap and all that stuff. And I think you're going to be okay. And so far, what I do is I say, I'm not a doctor, but what I want to do is get your blood work done. So I'm lucky that I work with a team of doctors where I recommend that they go do blood work if they're that concerned, to see some of the imbalances, either in their hormones or either in their food sensitivity, but at least they have some kind of direction on what foods to eat. But it comes down to, protein, carbs, and fats. I mean, we usually run like a 40-30 split, where we use like a lot of good fats coming from good sources of nuts like almonds and pistachio, fish oils. Carbohydrates is mostly tons of green vegetables, some high fiber foods as well. Staying away from the starches, and then just loading up on good sources of fish, lean meat, veggies, or tofu if you're more on the vegetarian side,
Mhm.
beef. So I mean, it's not rocket science. And I say, look, use the hand system. 5 times a day is the amount of time you guys should eat. The palm of your hand is going to be your protein. If you need to a little bit more, you can have a bit more. Too tight fist, it's going to be tons of veggies, and then you could take a little tablespoon or a tight fist of almonds or nuts, any sorts of nuts for good fats, and that should be your easy way to kind of look at things. And then just hydrate properly with some water, and you should be okay. But we run a lot of tests, Sean,
Yeah,
to see if there's any sensitivities with doctors, if we have to get to that level. But we really, 80% is a lot of emphasis on the nutrition for sure.
I love that. And you talked about the LA Kings, and they know what they're doing, obviously. They want
Mm-hmm.
him at a certain weight. And you talked about gaining 5 pounds of lean muscle mass, losing 9 pounds of fat. So he went down 4 pounds,
Right.
according to the math.
That's
However,
right.
that's a hard 5 pounds to gain. And believe me, I've been there. The general managers, old school guys, or coaches, they need to gain weight. It's like, you know what? Like, what kind of weight. Let's be certain about that because the
Hmm.
game now, these guys are all lean, man. They're all, I mean, all my forwards were under 10% body fat,
Yeah.
defensemen maybe under 12. Like you're not just adding weight for the purpose of adding weight. Like you want to be lean and
Yeah.
strong and have a really good proportion of muscle versus fat. And that's what I see. So that has changed. That has changed from, everyone nowadays in the NHL, there's no overweight players. You
No, and
Danny, you-
you
yeah,
look at some of these hockey players, like even now with the whole social media when they're coming down that carpet or that aisle with their suits. I mean, these guys are like,
yeah,
they're almost built like Olympic 100-meter sprinters. You know what I mean? Like you
yes,
got the shoulders, the strong quads,
boots,
the glutes. They're like and very lean. I mean, and
yeah,
you got to admire that because it's not easy, right? Now that's the other thing too. A lot of people look at these players, oh, they make big money and stuff. But guess what, guys? This is a full-time job in the
yes.
gym, how to eat, when to eat, what to eat, practice, less sleep. Like to sacrifice. I admire that because I mean, being an athlete, you know what that's all about. Where the general public just kind of looks at the mighty dollar, like expecting a guy to perform based on what he's paid. But believe me, no one wants to underperform. I don't think.
No, and yeah, it's changed. There's no one, yeah, like you said, they're professional athletes. People might think, oh, it must be nice. Well, it's hard. It's hard. It
Yeah.
was hard for that Clark player to add 5 pounds of lean body mass this summer. Like it's
Yeah, and there was a lot
very
of
hard.
stress on him too because
Yes.
you have to check in every 2 weeks. You have to send
Yeah.
pictures of his food, and I mean this is a kid that's the first round pick, and in his mind he looks at his body and his physique, and I mean the guy looks great. He got super strong this year,
Hmm.
and yeah, so it's a lot of pressure on these kids too to stay that way
Yeah.
for sure.
So I probably have a lot of Boston listeners here.
Yeah.
Obviously, Boston Bruins first round pick, Dean Letourneau. He's my son's roommate actually at Boston College, which is how I got your number to get you on the show. So I see that young man. I'm like, wow. Like right now at 18, no. But I'm looking a few years down the road. I see a kid ectomorphic, and he's going to
Yeah.
learn from you year in and year out. I'm not going to put a number on how much he's going to weigh, but he's going to be a big kid, right?
Oh yeah. He's
Yeah.
going to be a big kid. He still hasn't fully grown yet. And I seen him like it's like every summer, like he comes in, I'm like, and I keep looking up like
Yeah.
the green giant way up, and it's like, wow, like Dean, what the heck, right? And I mean, his parents are such great people, and I know Jeff's a pretty big guy, but and then his brother Chase is also a big guy, but yeah, he's gonna be, I'd say, man, like 222. Like he's
Yeah.
he's gonna be he's gonna be a big boy, and he can move really well. I'm so impressed with that. And one of the things that I keep doing with him, Sean, is incorporating the contrast with him because he's relatively strong, but you want to keep that foot speed fairly quickly and keep that explosiveness carried away because he. I mean, I'm sure you've seen him play, but for a big guy, this guy can move very good. And with the program they have at Boston College, I mean, it's such a great program, and I think these guys are going to develop very, very good. And I mean, your son is great. Like he was second round, right? Am I
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
congratulations on that. That's
Pretty
incredible.
cool. Thank you.
That's amazing, amazing.
I can only imagine how small that room is because my son is 6'5" now, and I think
Wow!
Dean's
Oh,
6'6", so there's not a lot of
oh my
space in that room.
gosh,
You
that's
know,
insane!
there's not a
Wow.
lot of workouts going on in that room. There's probably not enough space, but no, that's good stuff. Because it's like, yeah, I look at that kid, and you think what the Bruins are thinking. You think about, I remember Blake Wheeler, for example, was about 175 pounds when he was drafted at
Right,
18. And that you're not drafting a lot of times, most of the time, you're not drafting for the now. You're drafting for the future and where they'll be. So, I mean, you do have the very, very slim chances of being a draft pick and playing right away in the NHL, but most of
right.
the guys take some time. So that I'll be interested in that and see. I'll be looking forward to follow them not only this year but in the future. Um,
Yeah, likewise. I'm gonna try to come and see some of the games. I
awesome,
love to see. Yeah, I would love to see that for sure.
awesome. That's great, man. Well, I don't want to take up much of your time. So you're very active on social media. Your TikToks and Instagrams are unbelievable. I mentioned that
Thank
earlier.
you.
How could listeners find out more about you if you're a hockey player up in Ottawa, you need training, how do they reach out to you, bud?
Yeah, no, thanks. Well, thanks for the social media. I mean, that stuff is a lot of fun. I mean, everybody sees the fancy, cool stuff on there, but I always tell people, I say, like, you don't really see the hard work that the guys do. Like, that's the cool stuff.
Yeah,
But they can go to training at tgathletics.com. That's the contact form. They can email me if they're in the Ottawa area. They're more than happy. I'd be more than happy to have them come in. There's a lot of people that once a lot of these teams come into Ottawa. I know the Bell Cup is a big one. I get a lot of visitors, and more than welcome to come in. Just shoot me an email, and yeah, that's pretty
awesome.
much it.
Awesome. Well, Tony, I really appreciate your time. This has been great. And yeah, thanks for your time. I look forward to collaborating with you in the future.
Likewise, it was great to be on your podcast. Continue the success, and I want to learn from you as well too, Sean. You have so much experience in the NHL, so I'm going to be picking your brain from time to time. Hope you don't mind that.
Oh, I love it. Thank you very much. And we'll talk to you soon, Tony.
Okay, thanks, Sean.
Thanks a lot.
Bye now.
Bye.